Welcome back, everyone, to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. It Wobble, Adam Levy, Steven Stamp, Greg Beecher here with you. Now we're going to start a new segment that will be happening throughout this spring, which I know that Stamper and I are very excited about. Stamper being one of the leaders in terms of preparing for the future NLL drafts, one of the great draft minds that we have in this game. And so it feels like there's no better person to talk about future NLL stars that are playing the collegiate game, the collegiate field game in the NCAAs right now. And Stamper, there's a couple of big schools, one that was ranked, that's not ranked anymore, that has some Canadians. But I want to start with Syracuse University, who is always known to have a lot of Canadians playing for them. But this year, huge dominating win in their first game of the season. 24 goals, I believe it was, by that incredible offense. They've got guys like Sam English and Michael Grace, who have already been drafted into the National Lacrosse League. Then you've got Owen Hiltz, who is a senior, Trey Deer, Finn Thompson. When you look at those guys, you've seen them so much in the box game over the summer. What can you say about what we can expect, especially, I guess, touching on English and Grace, who we know we're going to be seeing next year?
Yeah, I mean, English, obviously a second overall pick. And I think the other big contender for that second overall pick was Mike Grace. So, you're looking at two guys who are expected to be solid players right away. I think in that 2024 draft, it wasn't the most loaded draft. So I'm not sure that these guys are necessarily so high in certainly in 26 or 27 when they're just stocked with talent. There's going to be much more. These guys just wouldn't have been so high, but Sam English is a very good player. He's been very good in the box, playing with the Oakville Rock. Mike Grace has been playing for years, been playing really solid defense, and I think got some more attention when he played for Canada at the World Field Championships, right? I think that was huge for him. So it's interesting, like I look at guys that are coming up, like Finn Thompson to me he's in the 2026 draft. And we were talking last week a lot about Americans, and now here we are about Americans coming to play box. Here we are talking Canadians in the field. Finn Thompson's also a great box player. One of the absolute best with the Mimico Mountaineers. And he has been just outstanding, putting up some historic numbers. And he's going to be battling with, for the top spot, another strong contender for that top pick that could make it 3 Americans first overall in a row is Joyce Belina. So, right. There's the Syracuse connection right there. I think Finn Thompson is really a guy to keep an eye on. And who else is on Syracuse? I honestly, I don't follow the college game as much. It's hard to watch games north of the border.
Yeah. I mean, those are the main contributors. So you got Owen Hiltz, Trey Deer, who's played some great junior A ball during the summer. Really one of those electric players. You mentioned Grace. You look at him coming on to a Georgia Swarm team that Brett Dobson, I'm sure, is going to be happy to have him in front of him. Definitely bolsters that younger defensive side there. Those are definitely your main guys who have been contributing, and everyone has been talking about the Syracuse offense. So when you look at those guys, they've been incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting. Trey Deer is in the 2027 draft, and he is going to be a contender for number 1 as well. I think he's up there with some guys like Cody Milosky at Denver, Ty Banks, who's at Georgetown, Jamison Bucktooth, terrific players on Onondaga Community College. I'm not sure what his plans are after. There's a bunch of guys, but Trey Deer is fantastic, and I can only imagine what he can do in the field game. I haven't actually seen him play field lacrosse. I've only seen him play box, and he's spectacular and does some great things. And he's gritty. He's got a lot of grit to him. Another guy to keep an eye on as well in Syracuse, actually a bit further down the road, is Brett Bucktooth Jr., who's a youngster. And I think he's played junior B with the Onondaga Redhawks. He's a very good young player. I'm very curious to see if he follows in his father's footsteps of being that really solid kind of depth player with a two-way game. And yeah, I'm very curious to see that as well.
And then another school that one that has had a lot of early success, including a dramatic win over ranked Towson yesterday, is a top 10 team in Johns Hopkins University with a lot of other Canadian stars. Matt Collison leading the way, Stuart Phillips from BC, from Coquitlam on that team has been contributing. Brooks English, Chuck Rawson. You've also got Gabe Soracchetti on that team, as well as Alec Billings, Jack Charbonneau. So many Canadian players. Hopkins 2-0 to start the season against two ranked opponents. They look very strong, and they do because of those names I just mentioned.
Yeah, and I'm starting a series. I believe it's starting tomorrow as we speak. So the live subscribers, you will be able to know that this is coming. It is a series of interesting prospects to watch, 10 per draft for the next 4 drafts, starting with this year's 2025 draft. Everyone else who's not watching live, you're going to have to wait until it comes out, and then you'll know. So there's a bit of a bonus for being a subscriber. Thanks, everyone, for being with us, and tell your friends. But Johns Hopkins is quite a school as well. And a lot of those guys you just mentioned, as you're going through those names, I'm like, okay, he's in this draft, he's in this draft. A bunch of those guys are going to be in these stories. Did you mention Colton Marquis?
I did not, actually.
He
is an elite talent as well.
Oh, he is so good, playing for the Peterborough Lakers in senior box. He was with Orangeville, kind of overlooked, even though he led them in scoring on one of those huge offensive teams for Orangeville. He is a really dynamic player. They have a bunch of guys. Matt Collison. I mean, I'm just looking at the top of my 2026 draft, and all these guys, Brooks English up in the upper reaches of the draft. These are guys who are going to be very high draft picks, and they're bringing a lot to this college team.
Yeah, and I believe I didn't mention, I could be wrong on this, but looking at it actually now, Colton Marquis at the University of Albany now. He was a transfer, I believe, over.
That would explain it.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're more up to date on this stuff than I am. I'll correct that for my story, and there we go. I'm fixing it right now.
And then just finally, in terms of ranked teams, this is a team that is no longer ranked, at least for now, although they did have a win yesterday in Ohio State, the Ohio State University, who has had so many NLL products come out of there, a handful of very talented face-off guys. Another one you should be keeping your eye on, who is on the up and up, is Jack Oldman, who I know has been tapped as someone who can have the potential of a Jake Withers, and then Alex Marinier as well, part of that Ohio State team. When it comes to those two guys and the impact that you think they can make in the NLL, what are your thoughts?
What's the first guy's name?
Jack Oldman.
Oh, Jack Oldman. Okay, from Whitby. Sorry, I didn't hear first. Yeah, I know he's a solid player. I think Alex Marinier is right up there. I think you're looking at Alex Marinier as probably a top 5 pick this year in the draft. Huge scorer with the Burlington Blaze, and he was on that Burlington Blaze team that won the Minto Cup. And he and Braden Saris, who's at Princeton, were just a dominant right side. And they had Will McLeod on the left side. He's another guy who's gonna do very well, be a high pick. But he's a year later. He's at where is Will? He's at Robert Morris. But Marinier, very good. He had that great season with all those guys around him, and Saris and all these other guys that they brought in and trade in that. And then he came back and did it again, had 95 points the one year, came back with 94 for a Burlington team that had graduated a lot of players. Mm-hmm. So he's very good. I'm curious about Dante Bowen.
Yes.
At Ohio State. He was with Orangeville last year. Actually a Brampton guy, was protected by Brampton from the major series draft this year. But he was a big part of Orangeville's defense on their way to the Minto Cup, where they lost to Coquitlam in the final. Yeah,
he's a tremendous talent, and you're right. That is another one who was not mentioned, and that is going to be interesting to see. So would he would be in this year's draft? He's a senior at Ohio State now.
Yes, he would be. He is. And I've got him. I'm looking top 10 for him as well. Yeah, I think he's really good. I mean, now another guy you'd mentioned. Are you ready to move on to another team?
Sure.
There was somebody you mentioned before that I thought was interesting. That's Dante Koulis from Rutgers, who he was actually with Brampton as well, and he was with them when they didn't have a great team that year. They were kind of a younger team, and then he was actually traded out to Alberta in his senior season. And if he'd been a year later, he would have been with all the guys that were traded to Orangeville last year. I don't know if he would have gone with them, but that's the class he was in. Was Connor O'Toole, Dante Bowen, and Bowie Horseman. All went to Orangeville in a huge trade. Brampton looking to build for the future. And I think Koulis gets a little overlooked because his team wasn't super competitive. They weren't really a playoff team when he was with Brampton. And he went out to Alberta and just scored. Wherever he goes, he just scores. He just plays well. He gets a little overlooked, but I think he's pretty good. I think he has some potential.
Yeah, and he's going to get more attention, at least at the field game this season. Rutgers now are a top 20 ranked team. They've started off their season quite hot, and he has scored in both games. Actually had 2 goals and 2 assists yesterday against Long Island University. So, that speaks to his potential both in the field and in the box game.
Okay. Anybody else? You're leading this one. Kind of
you know what? I'm sure we could go through so many schools with the Canadians. They seem to be flooding into the field collegiate game, just as the Americans are are playing in the summers in the box game. But I think pointing out those 3 schools is a good starter for those people excited about future NLL drafts.
I have one more I want to mention.
Yes,
you've got me going now. I've always said Denver. The Pioneers, Matt Brown coaching. He's a Canadian. He's done such a good job of bringing guys in. They've got Casey Wilson there. Of course, we've seen a ton of Denver guys: Jeremy Noble, Trevor Baptiste,
Westberg.
Westberg. Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty good, right? Casey Wilson is there. He's a righty forward of the Victoria Shamrocks. Played very well for them. He went to the Mann Cup with them last year. You've got DJ Clark, whose dad, Jason Clark, was a very good NLL player, captain of the Peterborough Lakers when they were winning Mann Cups back in kind of an earlier iteration. They've got some very good players. And DJ Clark's a guy to keep an eye on. He's very interesting, a really lively young player. And Cody Milosky, I mentioned earlier. I mean, holy cow. I remember seeing Cody Milosky at basically a prospects camp at the Hill Academy in Ontario. He'd come out and he was playing, and you watch him play field lacrosse. It's like watching his dad play box lacrosse. Kurt was a gritty, you see the kind of coach he is. He was the same player. He was gritty, smart, skilled. And Cody, I have not seen a lot. He was pretty young. This was several years ago. And I have not seen a lot of players come from behind the net, come from X with the kind of just drive. Like, he was coming out and you were not going to stop him. He was coming out and he was going to do what he wanted to do. And I thought, okay, well, he's playing against a bunch of kids. They're some really good players, but then he goes to junior A, he does the same thing. I imagine he's doing the same thing in Denver because he is dynamite.
Yeah, he has been great. And, there was a great quote that Matt Brown actually came out with. And Matt Brown obviously knows the box game very well. He actually said that Cody Milosky is a name you're going to be talking about for decades. And for that kind of praise, as many of us, who have covered the box game and know Milosky and what his potential, but to hear that publicly from Matt Brown, that his confidence to say that, speaks volumes.
Yeah. We're going to wrap this section up, but we've got more. We are going to take a look next at predictions for the coming week. I am confident that Adam is going to get back on track. And
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And if Preston's healthy, we know he's nails. Right, when he's healthy. So hopefully he doesn't have to go to the practice squad or the IR. Hopefully he's ready to bounce back now. But we will be back with more of It Wobble on Blue Squatch. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you in a minute.
Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate your time. We know you could spend it anywhere. We appreciate you spending it with us. If you would like to comment on these videos live and have access to our Discord, please consider subscribing to our channel membership.